Hi, I'm Vernon from the Hinkleshop. How to make a cribbage board with Carveco software. Let's get started. All right, a couple of things to remember and to consider. Number one, this is the way that I make these tutorials. This is the way that I make these projects. There's a million different ways to do this. So if you find an easier way or a better way, that's great. Add it to the community and help each other out. The other thing is, I'm not going to be in the bottom corner of this video like many other people, where you can see what I'm doing. I think that's a distraction, so I'm not going to put myself in the video until I'm at the end here and I'm explaining anything above and beyond what I'm showing you. So to start with, we're going to go to New Model, and I'm going to start with a width of 20 by 20 inches, and I know that's much larger than a cribbage board, but bear with me, I'll show you how we fix all that as we're going through this. Our origin is in the bottom left. We're going to click OK, and it opens up to the 3D view. Now, the first thing we're going to do, pardon me, is we're going to go to the circle tool over here on the left. Going to click that, and we're going to drag out a circle. It doesn't matter where we put it. It doesn't matter how big it is, because we're going to adjust the size over here on the right. Go over here to where it says diameter or radius. We're going to switch to diameter if you're not there already. We're going to change this now to 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. That's how big the holes are for your pegs. We're going to click Create, and we're going to zoom in a little bit so we can get a better look at this circle. It's pretty tiny, so let's switch to the 2D view. I think that's easier to see. Let's zoom in once more. Now, if ever you want to move this around, you can click both mouse buttons, hold them down, and you can drag this thing around the screen. So at the current time, we have 1/8 inch hole. Let's go up to the cursor tool, and now we're going to use the block and copy tool to create multiple copies and to lay out the actual board, the grid. So first we're going to go up here to block and copy, click that. With this active, as you can see, it's blue, so it's active. We're going to go over to this side, and we're going to use block and copy. Distances are gaps. The first gap for X is going to be 0.25. Y is at 0.25 as well. Going to come down here to the bottom to columns and rows. And the first column and row setup will be 4 columns, 5 rows, and we're going to click Apply. Now if we back out just a little bit, you can see that we now have the grid for one first set of holes. Close out block and copy. Now if you happen to click off and it's like this, that's no big deal. Left click, drag over, highlight them all. We're going to group this bunch of holes. So click over here to group them. Let's check that they are grouped by clicking on one hole. Yep, they're grouped. Okay, now we're going to grab both mouse buttons and slide this down to the left just to move it over and get it out of the way a little bit. Let's activate it again. Go back up here to block and copy. Again, block and copy. Distances are gaps. And in this case, we're going to go 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.375 for both X and Y. In this case, the columns and the rows will change to 3 columns, 4 rows. We're going to click Apply again. Now, if you don't group this together and you click this, it's going to make a mess up here. Everything's going to be joined together. The holes aren't going to be separated correctly. So remember, join these together, group them, and then come over to this side and do this. Now click Apply, and just like that, you now have your grid, as you can see there. Now, it's not in the center. We're not going to worry about that yet. Let's just click on it here, left click, and again, drag it over out of the way, clicking off of it. Now, these groups these groups of circles are grouped, but the whole thing is not. So the next step, we're going to grab 2 of these square groups. We're going to go over here to mirror. We're going to mirror to the right, which will give us another group of them. Closing out the mirror tool. Going to grab this guy, left click, and drag him over here so we can work with him away from this group. So let's zoom in a little bit. Once more, maybe. Too far. Pardon me. So now, these guys are still grouped. We want to ungroup them. So clicking on them individually, over here left click until we get the fly out menu, and ungroup. Same thing with these guys. Ungroup. We're going to activate the bottom set here like you see. We're going to delete those. We don't need them. What we do need are these guys, and we need them to stay in the position they're in, because those will line up with, let me slide this back over, those will line up with these two. We're going to make our turn now, so we want those outside lines or holes and these two outside holes to line up, as well as these guys. So we don't want to mess with the spacing here. Let's slide this back over. We're going to use copy and paste a little bit here, as well as the transform tool. First thing we're going to do is get those guys active, right click, copy, right click again, and paste. Now it doesn't look like it did anything, but it did. There's actually two sets of vectors here. The top one is activated and highlighted. The one directly underneath it that you can't see is not. So do not click off of that. Do not deactivate it. Now we're going to go up here to the transform tool. I'm going to click on that. Over here to this side, we're not changing anything here, dropping all the way down to rotate degrees. I'm going to use anti-clockwise. We can go clockwise if we wanted to, but in this case I'm going to use anti-clockwise. And the first rotation I'm going to do is 90 degrees. Click apply. Without deactivating this, I'm going to come over to the cursor tool. When I get the 4 arrows or the cross, I'm going to slide this guy up here into the middle. That would be our vertical set of holes. Without clicking on anything again, we're going to right click once more. We're going to paste again. That's going to give us another set on top of a set. Back to the transform tool, and in this case we're going to go 45 degrees and apply. Back to the cursor tool, grab these guys, slide them up, sort of in position. This is just an eyeball thing at this point. Clicking off of that, right click once more, pasting once more, back to the transform tool. In this case we're going to go 135 degrees, which will be the other direction. Click apply, back to the cursor tool, grab these guys once more, slide them over here so that they're in a relatively close position. So we're in pretty good shape there now. First thing I do is I go through and I group that first set of holes, then I'll group this set of holes, then I'll group the center set of holes, and I will group these guys, and I will group these guys, and we will start to position this thing where it belongs. So what I like to do is grab this one first, and we're going to drag him down so that it's pretty much directly over top of this first hole here. You might have to move them a little bit and adjust them. We can get this cleaned up as we go along. Let's grab this set. We'll move him down so that he's fairly close to straight with this hole. Now we're going to push shift, and we're going to get this other set of holes activated. Right click, going to slide over here to align vectors, sliding over once more and down, and we're going to click bottom. And you'll see those two sets of holes that are shaped like a V now. They will drop together and they'll be exactly the same position, like that. That puts them in a pretty good position. Let's grab this center bunch, and we can actually move this one down a little bit. Now, pardon me again, you can leave these like this, eyeballed, or if you need to get very specific, if it has to be perfect for you, there's ways to do this as well. You can left click over here on the numbers and drag a line in and drag it to the edge of that hole we're dealing with. Let me zoom in. We're dealing with this hole. The line is on the edge. Clicking this, we can now pull this over until we get that symbol, and that shows us that these guys are now directly in line. You can do that with the same thing on the other side. Clicking this one now, zooming in so you can see that symbol, and now they are directly in line. If this guy here in the middle, if you need to be exactly precise for that, you can left click on this line, click edit guideline to give you the number. Click off of that, use your calculator, click on this line, edit guideline, get the number, click off of that, subtract the one from the other and divide it by 2, obviously. That would give you your center line. you would right click on this, and in this case edit the guideline again, and you would do a relative offset for the distance that would be center. I'm going to guess that it is, let's do 0.375, which is 3/8 divided by 2 is 0.1875, and insert. And now you can see that you have a center line in there. These guys should be 3/8 of an inch apart because that's what we did the block and copy measurement at. So if you highlight these guys and you slide up until you get that crosshair bullseye indicator, I like to left click and drag them out and drop them and then do it once more. So that way when I'm bringing them in and I get that symbol, I know that they're directly on the line and I can slide it down until I'm in the spot that I'd like to be. And I think that looks pretty good. I eyeball this. I don't get too crazy with where these all line up. Now, we can actually go up here to view, down to the bottom, and delete all the guidelines. If you need this distance to be exactly 1/4 of an inch, you can do the same thing. You can left click and pull a line in. You can then right click, edit guideline, relative offset, 0.25, and insert. Close that out. We're pretty close. You can highlight these two, and then you can drag this guy down into it. You have to zoom in pretty good so you can get a hold of it. And once you have that symbol, you know you're on the line. So now you're 1/4 of an inch, you're 1/4 of an inch, and that's relatively close. And that's close enough for me in my world. So this is a game. We're not making a piece of industry standard metal or something where it has to be exactly perfect. Let's go back to view. Let's delete all the guidelines. The next thing we want to do is highlight all these guys, make them active. We're going to group them because we don't want them to move. We don't want to mess it up. Clicking off of that, now you can see that we have one turn. That one would go over between this block to that block. We need to create another one. Right click. Let's go to mirror. That's the easiest way. Let's mirror to the left. All right, we have two of them now. We can close out the mirror tool. This guy needs to be turned upside down in order for this to work, so we go to the transform tool. We go over here and we can rotate anti-clockwise 180 degrees and click apply. So now we have the top turn and the bottom turn. Moving back to the cursor tool. Let's get these guys active. We need to grab them all. Let's group them just for the sake of argument. Push F9 on your keyboard to put them in the middle. Let's grab this one here and move him down to the bottom side in a relatively close position to where he needs to be. Let's grab the top one and zoom in so we can see what we're doing. Again, we can drag a line in if we want to make sure this is absolutely perfect to the outside edge of this. We can grab this guy and bring him over. You can see that we get that symbol when we're on the line. We can drop down in and release. Again, if we need this to be exactly 1/4 of an inch, we can draw another line in and do the same thing. I'm not going to worry about that here. This is just an example. We can actually take this line now and move it over to the other side. And this, you can move the arrow up and down so you can get on the circle. Zooming in to make sure we're here on this side and not on this side. Down to the bottom, get these guys active, zoom in, grab the corner till we get that symbol, release, and we're in pretty good shape. We now have the makings of a cribbage board. Up to view, delete all the guidelines, highlight everything, group everything so we don't lose it, we don't mess it up. Push F9 to put it in the center, click off of it. We now need to create a square around it so that we can cut this thing out of a board. Go to the rectangle tool, drag out a rectangle, left click and drag to the right and drag down again. Don't worry about how big it is, we're going to adjust that over here. The width of this thing will be 6 inches. The height will be 13. Click create, go to the cursor tool over here, and I may be moving too fast. I'll slow down a little bit with the cursor here. Push F9 to put it in the middle, clicking off the square, rolling out with the mouse key. That is how you zoom in and zoom out here, by the way. Now, I have just made it a general rule recently that I want 1 inch of stock all the way around the cutoff. So that way I have room for my clamps and I have room to cut it off and not run into a clamp with my end mills. So we're going to click on this square. We're going to go down here to the offset vectors tool, left click that, going over here. Obviously I said 1 inch, so I'm going to use a 1 inch offset. I'm going to go outward, sharp corners, selecting the resulting offset, and click offset. So now we have the 1 inch border. That's actually going to be our stock size. Let's roll this over here in the center a little bit. All right, now we have all of this material and you're thinking, that's not 1 inch, that's, how's this going to work? Because if we go to 3D view, oops, and we back out so you can see, the origin is way over here. You don't want to have a piece that's 20 by 20. This is a simple fix. Click on the outside square. Up here to the top, go to Model, drop down to Crop, click Crop, and that gets rid of all the excess material. Now you'll notice that this origin is still over here in limbo or out in space. We don't want that. That'll cause a problem for you when you go to carve. Go back up to Model, click Model, come down here to Set Position, click that. What we're looking for over on this side is bottom left pixel. Now don't just put that there and click OK because it's not going to work. Come over here to the real position, put in all zeros. Now click OK, and you can see that the origin jumps to the stock. So now your stock size is exactly what it should be. And if you're curious about what the stock size is, you can always find that out by clicking on this outside square rectangle, go to Model, and Set Size, and you can check it. So your height is now, your stock height is 15 by 8. We don't need to change it, that's what it is. We also don't need this outside rectangle anymore, so we can delete that and get rid of it, confirming that it's gone. Let's talk about some toolpaths. Let's back up one step. This thing isn't fancy enough for me. Let's make it a little more fancy. Let's click on this one here. Nobody likes a square rectangle board. Let's put some rounded corners on this thing. So if we go down here to the fillet tool, click fillet tool, coming back over to this side. Let's use a 1/2 inch radius. We're going to go fillet arc. Going to come back over here. Now, we don't need this guy highlighted or activated to do this, so let me just do this one more time and prove to you that we don't. If we go here, here, that's correct. You'll go to the corner, and when you get the window, left click, and it'll knock the corners off of this thing for you. You do every corner. That looks a little nicer for the board. Close this out. I'm still not happy with that. I think it needs to be fancier than that. We need to put some text in here. Let's put start down here and finish up here. So go to the text tool, sliding over here to the right, pick whatever font you choose, whatever one you like. I'm just going to stick with this one. The size should be 1/4 of an inch, and we're using inches. We're not using points or millimeters, we're using inches. If it is not set at 20.25, change it, click off of that, go back to your cursor tool like this, click back on text, and it'll adjust it so that it actually is the correct size. And we're going to come in here and we're just going to type the word start. Coming back over to this side, scrolling down, we're going to create it. If you don't click create, start will disappear. I actually did that wrong. I'm going to delete that start. I had cap locks on this thing and didn't realize it. So we'll go back to text. Now we'll push start. Create. That's great. Let's just go to the cursor tool and move him over into a position that looks nice. That works for me. Back to the text tool. Up here on the top, we're going to write finish. Going over to this side, scrolling down and clicking create. Back to the cursor tool, move him into position, and I'm kind of lining up the H with the outside of that. I think that looks, fairly decent. Again, this is eyeball and all personal preference. Start needs to be moved up. It's a little too far away for my taste. That looks good. And just for the heck of it, let's put another peg hole there so the winner can actually gloat a little bit and put the peg in the final hole. That should be 1/4 of an inch. Not 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. Click create. Back to the cursor tool so we can move this into a better position, and let's put that in the middle between the I and the N. Looks pretty good to me. All right, let's do some toolpaths here quick. So if we click on all these holes, we push shift and we click on this little guy because he wasn't included. Let's grab it all and move it up so you can see it a little better. There's another way to do this too. Because this is grouped, you could actually left click here and drag out and pick up that little hole on its own by releasing, and you'll have them all in that way. Over here to toolpaths, we're going to go down here to the bottom and we're going to pick drilling toolpath. I'm going to grab this guy and slide it over just a little bit, and I'm also going to increase the menu a little bit so we can see the word calculate now here on the bottom. Our start depth will be 0. Our finish depth will be a 1/2 inch. We need to pick a tool. Now these holes need to be 1/8 of an inch, so obviously this is an 1/8 inch end mill that we're going to use. Select. Scrolling down, I do use PEC drilling and a retraction height of 0.08. Scrolling down again, we're going to set up the material. The wood is going to be 0.75. We'll click OK. We're going to call this holes. We're going to calculate, and you got a bunch of hole patterns there. Let's close out the drilling menu. If we go over to the side, you can actually click on these light bulbs and shut that stuff off so that it doesn't get confusing. Clicking off of the circles, let's click on the two texts, click on finish, push shift, click on start. Let's do a V-bit toolpath for that up here. Start depth is 0. Let's limit the maximum tool depth to a 1/8 of an inch. Select a tool. Now you could use a 30 degree or a 60 degree for this. I wouldn't try to use a 90. It won't go deep enough. Your letters won't look very nice. I'm going to choose the 60. I'm going to select that. Continuing down. We don't need a roughing tool because there's nothing in there that's going to get roughed out. Let's give it a name. We'll call it letters. Calculate now. Closing this out. Again, clicking on the light bulbs. And then sometimes you have to click the light bulbs twice to turn them off. Let's do the toolpaths down. If you click on this arrow, you can actually see the toolpaths. We're good. Let's click off of the letters and click on the outside of the stock. This will be a profile toolpath with your T up here. If you click on toolpaths here, you can also get some toolpaths down here. I just use this window. It's easier. All right. This is an outside cut. Sharp corners. Start depth 0. Finish depth is the depth of your stock, unless you're like me and you like to go a little shallower and then use a flush trim bit to cut this thing loose with, or cut it loose and then clean it up. Cut it loose with a bandsaw and then clean it up. For those of you that don't do that, I'll go and put some tabs in. So cut depth in this case will be 0.75, so you cut all the way through. Now, because we use the 1/8 inch end mill, we don't want to be switching back and forth between a 1/4 and an 1/8 and a V-bit. So let's use the 1/8 inch end mill to cut it loose as well. So we'll go down through. Let's put in a constant number of tabs. We only need 3. Let's do a length of 0.5. Let's do a depth of 1/4 of an inch. I don't like 3D bridges. I like 2D bridges. I think they're stronger. I know they're stronger. It takes a little longer to cut them out, but I think it's a better idea. Just personal preference again. Click add and it puts the bridges in automatically. If you needed to drag these around because it was a strange shape and the tabs went in or the bridges went in the wrong spot, you can actually hover over them, left click, and drag them to the position you want them in. I'm not going to do that here because we're dealing with a rectangle and they're in a good spot. Let's roll down. Thickness has already been set up. My safe Z, by the way, is 0.1. That's pretty much what I use all the time. Let's give it a name. I always call it cut loose on the last one. And let's calculate now. Closing this out, let's go over here and right click on the word toolpaths, sliding down to simulate all toolpaths. Click simulate, and it gives us a simulation, but let's go back over here and click simulate. Go down here to simulation default and click on the drop down menu. I like to use Sapelli for most of my simulations, so if we click on the slide bar, slide all the way to the bottom, right there is Sapelli. Click that and it changes. Let's push down on the mouse wheel and we can rotate, and you can see you've got a pretty nice looking cribbage board, and that's the basis for all of them. Now if you wanted to add more columns, obviously you could change the first block and copy to different columns, different rows, and add to it, and then create multiples of this turn, and then you could add turns after turn after turn, and you could have a massive cribbage board if you chose. I'm not going to do that here, obviously. Let's go to saving the toolpaths, I'm going to show you something important here. So click on toolpaths, going down here to the disk, save the toolpaths. Now, as you can see, things are in different order here than what I would prefer, and I would save these in separate files, meaning save the end mill files to one file, save the letters to another file. I'll grab the whole file here, clicking this arrow to bring it over to the inactive side. Click cut loose, click the arrow, get it over there. Now we have the letters. I would come down and give it a name down here, and a lot of times what I'm doing is naming the project, and then I'm saying the tool that I'm using in the description as well as the tool number. Because you're doing these in separate files, when they show up out on the Onefinity in my case, it just makes it easier to differentiate between what we're doing. So let me just give you an example. So down here I might write cribbage. Well, I would write cribbage if I could spell, C-R-I. I probably didn't even spell that right. Don't judge my spelling. Cribbage, tool 1, and I would write 60V, and I would save it. Then when I went to the other tools, I would take the V-bit and bring it to this side, bringing the other two back. Of course, we don't want to cut it loose first, so we would switch this by selecting these arrows and flip-flopping these. Then I would come down here and I would name the second tool, obviously, tool 2, and I would say 1 that you can't do an eighth, 1 space 8 mil. That would tell me it's a 1/8 mil, and I wouldn't have to remember what my tools were or what I used when I was out in the shop. Clicking save, and you're good to go. Not going to save it because I've already saved it to another file or another disk, but there you have it. That's a cribbage board. All right, there you have it. How to make a cribbage board on Carveco software, using Carveco software. Now, if anybody knows how to spell cribbage, please put it in the comments below, because obviously I can't figure out how to spell it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these tutorials, let me know in the comments. We can continue to do more tutorials. Thanks for watching as always. Please like, subscribe. We know that that really helps us out on YouTube. Check out my website, Hinkleshop.com. There's some files and stuff on there that we've been working through. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.